Hi, my name is Nate, and I'll be telling you guys about the scientific revolution with my sexy voice. But first, let me tell you about my group. All of the voiceover is done by me, and most of the script is done by me. Most of the illustrations are done by Anna, and most of the photography is done by Paige. We hope you enjoy this little video we put together. Woo! But first, let me start off by defining what the scientific revolution was. What? It was a step towards modern science in times like 1500 AD. It really changed how many scientists proceed with scientific experiments and changed how many scientists overall study the whole universe. It all started off in 1543 when Nicholas Copernicus published his own book called De Revolutionibus Orbium Coelestium. It called upon his very own theory, which we state as the heliocentric theory, which reads that planets orbit around the sun, which was in the center of the universe. Another point that he suggested was that since planets were spherical, they orbited in circles. Though most of his theories are right, a man by the name of Bray tried to prove some of his theories wrong, but in the end failed. He was not the only great thinker of the scientific revolution, though. Another man was named Tycho Brahe. Brahe was a Danish nobleman known for his highly astronomical and planetary observations. So what makes Brahe so important? Since he was known to have highly accurate observations, he actually proved some of, Copernicus' points wrong, or at the moment was said to have. Later, after he died, Kepler actually proved what Tycho was saying was wrong. But what he mainly did and wanted to do was share and prove his observations for the world to see. So he created and provided instruments that could take very accurate recordings. Even though some of his points were wrong, he left all his observational data to Kepler, who actually made the right system. If he hadn't done that, Kepler might have gotten his own theory mixed up. Another man goes by the name of Johannes Kepler, who played a key role in the scientific revolution. Kepler was a mathematics teacher in a school. Later, Kepler became an assistant to a man named Tycho Brahe while getting into astronomy. So why is Kepler so important? Because he formulated the laws of planetary motion. In his first law, Kepler describes the orbits of planets as elliptical or occurring in ellipsis. In the second and third laws, there are mostly very complex math equations which could take up a whole page to explain. Another thing Kepler believed in was the heliocentric theory, because he was highly influenced by Copernicus and his theories. So he made his own system later after Tycho, who had passed away. Also, many of his works were the foundations for a lot of Isaac Newton's theories. Another man went by the name of Galileo Galilei. He was an Italian physicist and astronomer. Growing up, Galileo's father, who was a musician, suggested that he should become a doctor. But Galileo decided that he would one day grow up to be an astronomer and study space. In 1591, Galileo dropped a 100-pound weight and a 1-pound weight from the Leaning Tower of Pisa. They both hit the ground at the exact same time, destroying the Aristotelian system, which stated that an object's rate of fall was dependent upon its mass. In 1610, Galileo published his book called The Messengers of the Heavens. It described his telescopic observations from the first telescope, which was made by him, of the moon's surface and Jupiter's moon, backing up the heliocentric theory. He said just like the Earth, Jupiter had his own moon, so the Earth couldn't possibly be at the center of the universe. But as he did this, the church started to get into conflict with him. The last important person, by the name of Isaac Newton, played a vital role in the scientific revolution. He was a man who studied Galileo and his theories. He came up with another theory called the principle of gravity. Newton tells his own life story as one day he was sitting under an apple tree when an apple fell on his head. Some say nowadays that Newton's story is just a tall tale used to convince others, while many others believe in Newton's story. After having that experience he wondered why people on the moon weren't falling. He probably asked himself what was holding it in place. Along with his theories of motion, he published a book in 1687 with his laws of gravity in the book called Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica. Newton eventually came to the conclusion that, in fact, the apple and the moon were influenced by the same force, which he named such force gravitation, which root word is gravitas, which means heaviness or mass. In his book, Newton describes the force of gravity, which was every particle of matter in the universe attracts another particle with a force that is directly proportional to the product of the masses of the particles and inversely is proportional to the square of the distance between them. Mathematically, this translates into the equation Fg equals gm1 m2 divided by r2. The Fg stands for the force of gravity. The G stands for the constant, the gravitational constant, which adds the proper level of proportionality to the equation. M1 and M2 adds the proper amount of mass into the equation, and the R, which adds the straight line distance between the two particles. Newton really played a big role in science at the time, finding more about gravity and mathematically translating it to an equation. In conclusion, there were a lot more great thinkers of the century who helped out in discovering many new facts in the scientific revolution. But in my opinion, Copernicus, Newton, Galileo, Bray, and Kepler are probably the most famous and the most important people of the scientific revolution. This is Nate, and we hope you enjoyed this little video on the scientific revolution.